So, bonne nuit, bonjour, bonsoir, bienvenido, bienvenue, dobro dan. Um, so those are kind of all of a few of the languages learned over the course of the past 10 years. That was obviously French, a lot of French, because that's the primary one, Spanish, and I don't even remember the last one that I just said. It's been a long day and a long night. But I have learned over the course of the past 10 years, relearned Spanish, relearned French, learned a little bit of Malagasy, a little bit of Bosnian, a tad bit of Urdu, and all of it because of my career as a diplomat. So it's been a very interesting lifestyle. It's been definitely one that I never expected to have ever created or ever thought I would do. When I was in Wells, I had the career focus of I was going to study international law. I was going to do corporate law and or international corporate law, and that was kind of my focus. So I had that plan. Never once ever thought that it would take me the way that I have gone. So that's kind of a small snippet of my story, but I'll get a little bit more into detail about it as well as we go along. So I'm just going to share my screen. And get this set up so that we can. Right.
And we can see it, so
Perfect.
thumbs up. Technology, it's so wild.
I know, and then it's just a matter of all right, getting my screen set for the slideshow. Okay, so the title of my presentation is How Small of a World Do We Live In? And one of the things that I kind of took away from this is for those that had been kind of on before the introduction and before Rachel had started the recording, is that we live in such a small world that even here in Guinea, I came across a colleague who is also a Wells alum. And that was kind of one of the reasons why I was like, oh my gosh, we live in such a small world. So we're Wells women making strides in diplomacy, hence the title of my presentation tonight. So again, my name is Kathleen. I go by Kat, both professionally and when I was in Wells. I graduated in the class of 2004. I have my bachelor in international studies with a double minor in business management and Spanish. I left Wells, and as I said, I had every intention of becoming a lawyer and getting into the law field. Spent a couple of years trying to figure out how to do that, what I was going to do, the best way to do it. And I wasn't sure really how I was going to do it. I spent a year working as a daycare provider, and in the summers, a camp counselor, and worked as a school photographer for a year. And just really was like not understanding or not really knowing where I wanted to go. finally decided that I needed to go back to school. I went back and I went to Bryant and Stratton College and I got my associate's degree in paralegal studies in 2007. And I worked for a small law firm in Syracuse for 5 years. During that time, it got to the point where I realized I was not getting anywhere. I wasn't going to be able to do any career development or get any progress. So my options were continue and be unhappy or start again. And so I chose to start looking for new opportunities. Knew that I wanted to get into the international focus or into government work. So I started to search on USA Jobs and came across a job opportunity with the Department of State and said, least I can do is try. And the worst that can happen is they say, thanks for your application, but you're not qualified at this time. So I applied, I tried, and long story short, they offered me a conditional offer of employment in 2011. And by March of 2012, I was being offered a permanent position with the department. So it's been a whirlwind of an opportunity and a whirlwind of over 10 years. And I choose to serve because, and I continue to serve because I enjoy the experiences and the opportunities that I've had, the different cultures that I've been able to experience, the amazing communities that I've learned, that I've lived in and learned from. But most importantly, it's an opportunity for me to serve the United States in a way that works for me, but it's also helping the American citizens, both in the world and through the US. And that's kind of why I serve. So kind of briefly, the biggest highlights for me in my career, besides being able to travel, has been the ability to meet President Obama and First Lady Obama, meet President Biden when he was vice president, kayak in the Panama Canal, and go zip lining in New Zealand. So those were kind of some of the big things. And then there's been some very impactful stories and very impactful experiences that have made so much of a difference for me that I couldn't imagine when I first started this job that it would have been that impactful or that different and that life-changing. So just as a background for everybody, as my screen, so Foreign Service officers are anyone who works in the State Department, mostly overseas, but they contribute to the advancement and the interest and implementation of foreign policy. We have two main tracks of officers. We have our generalists and we have our specialists. Our generalists are people who have a very broad focus and they can use it around the world no matter where they work. It's generally in the realm of political, economic, management, consular, and public diplomacy. Every embassy has these careers in these offices. Our specialists are people who always are instrumental in the day-to-day operations, and they're responsible for security, safety, technology, structures, administration. We also have civil service employees who support the embassies and the consulates, and they are primarily working from Washington. We have our program development internships, presidential management fellow programs, our Wrangle fellows. These are all professional programs that anybody can participate in, and it gives them an opportunity to either experience the State Department or even determine if this is what they want to do. For some of our programs, it allows them to immediately become a Foreign Service member. So I have a couple trivia questions. How many embassies, consulates, and diplomatic missions are there in the world? Feel free to put your answers in the chat, or feel free to unmute yourselves and take a guess.
400. It's Rachel.
I was going to
No
say,
idea.
it's Lisa. I was going to say 387.
Oh, and Meredith said 200. Hold on. Yep, 200. Sarah Woodward Jones, 627.
All right. So
Randy, 500, since there are 190 countries.
there are actually 307 embassies, consulates, and diplomatic missions around the world. Now, Randy actually answered my second question, which was how many countries are covered, and that's more than 190. So there are some countries where we have multiple embassies and consulates. For example, in Mexico, we have embassies and consulates represented. India is another one where we have embassies and consulates, in China as well. And that is because there are so many people. The countries are a little bit larger, and then it just allows us to focus on one region within that country, and it allows us to break it down. So each consulate has a little bit of a section of that country, and then the embassy is an overarching and they oversee everything within that country. We also have diplomatic missions. So the USUN is a diplomatic mission. We also have the the US Organization of American States, not the US. Sorry, we have different organizations that are connected with multinational forces that do observation exercises as well. Some of the benefits that everyone that I've talked to that have said about this job is that the travel and the cultural experiences, the new friends, the experiences that we don't often get, to be able to participate in activities that are different, World Cup, Olympics, being able to meet the president on a more personal level. One thing is for me too was going to this movie set of Lord of the Rings, where they filmed all of the action parts, and it was actually the Hobbiton area, and like learning about that and reading about that, and experiencing that. That to me was different, but also just being able to travel and see different places around the world. So we not only have, so it's not just Americans working at the embassies. We also have what we call our locally employed staff, and they are our normal citizens within that country. So for me here, I work with Ghanaian nationals, and they are staff members who are hired, and they are filling multiple positions. We have travel officers, we have our general services people, we have our budget and finance people, we have our public diplomacy people, we have our mail people, we have our security guards. Every one of these people are generally here longer than the Americans. The Americans are only here 2 to 3 years, generally. There are rare ones like myself where we're here longer than that. USAID is usually here longer than that. But for the most part, they are the ones that maintain the continuity and the relationships that we establish with the host government and the host nation. So they're the ones that are really keeping the embassy running, and they're the ones that oftentimes in an evacuation, they're the ones that are going to be doing some of the work under the supervision from afar. So, for example, when we evacuated Afghanistan, they were the ones that were doing some of the work until they couldn't do work anymore. When we were evacuating Khartoum, Sudan, and we shut down the embassy, they're the one of the last few, along with some of the last embassy employees that are there, that are the ones that are helping to shutter the embassy and helping to close it down. They're also the ones that are going to be kind of keeping an eye on the embassy until we can get back into the country and back into the building. So overall, we have our foreign service officers, we have our locally employed staff, we have the civil service, and then we have student interns who are also providing help. They're student interns, there's people who are just coming in to help out. Sometimes we have summer hires, and it's our family members that are coming, like our college age students that are coming back after the term is over and they're spending the summer at home. They're usually working at the embassy and helping to fill a role and just learning something different. Some of the reasons, again, why we work for the State Department, or why anybody would choose to work for the State Department: variety and change. No 2 days are the same. Every day is different. You never know. One day you could be doing a simple, normal task of going to a meeting, and the next day you are reporting out on a police shootout or a protest or a coup. So it's never a dull moment. You're serving the United States. You're helping to protect American citizens. You're helping to promote American businesses. It's an interesting life. You have the opportunity to get a chance to experience something that not everybody does. It's a challenging work environment. It's a challenging but rewarding opportunity. You get to learn new languages. Like I said, I've learned Malagasy, I've learned Bosnian, I've learned a little bit of Urdu. I know people who have learned Arabic. I've known people who have learned Serbian. You name it, people have learned it. And you get to experience different cultures. So these are the 10 things that the State Department and USAID do for everybody overseas. And most of it's kind of our philosophy, if you will. We support American citizens abroad, not only through general services, passports, visas. If you are living abroad and you have a child, we do essentially their birth certificate. We also help in times of crisis. We help to promote democracy and foster stability around the world. Democratic countries are generally less to have invasions. They're more stable and they're more apt to be willing and able to work with their neighbors. We save lives. We help in time of crises. If there's a country in need, there's a disaster, there's any type of worldwide crises, we're there to help. COVID is a perfect example of that. We help Americans see the world. The State Department issues passports. They let people know where it is safe, not safe to see, to travel. We help create American jobs by helping to promote the American communities and the American jobs and the American companies overseas. We not only allow for the private and public partnerships, but we allow for that job productivity. We help make the world a safer place. We help countries feed themselves. We promote the rule of law and we promote human dignity, and we are the face of America overseas. So as I said, I've been overseas for 10 years, over 10 years now. I've gotten to do some pretty cool stuff, gotten to do some pretty different out of the box things. And I think some of the cool personable things that have really impacted my life has been helping with the Afghanistan refugees evacuation. I spent a good portion of time in Abu Dhabi and as a temporary assignment, helping with the refugees that were evacuated from Afghanistan to Abu Dhabi. And I did a lot of talking to people, a lot of communicating with them, a lot of talking about their situation, their story, learning a lot about what they went through. Couple stories that had really impacted me and made such a difference to me was helping those that had a connection. For example, I had a woman who came to me and her husband is an American citizen. She was in the process of doing her immigration interviews for being able to join her husband in the US. However, her interview was canceled when the situation in Afghanistan happened. And so she was waiting patiently. At the same time, she heard from her husband that both his brother and his mother were in the hospital with cancer. And she was so worried because he was all alone. He didn't have anybody to help him. He was trying to help his family, trying to take care of both of them, trying to be strong for them. But she was so distraught that I was the only person that she could think of at that time to come to, well, and talk to and share her struggle. And for me to be able to talk to her and to calm her down and provide a sense of strength and an ear to listen to, and just somebody that she could reach out to that would always reassure her and say, yes, you're going to be okay. You're going to get to the US. You're going to be fine, was just so comforting to her. And it was so amazing. And I was so excited when I got the email from her saying, yes, I definitely got a flight to the US. They're sending me. I'm going to go and I'm going to meet up with my husband. Thank you so much for everything. I can't thank you enough. And you're always welcome in our home whenever you pass through DC. And I was like, just so touched by that, because this woman had never had to offer that to me. But for her to say that I helped her so much and that she was always willing to open her house to me no matter what was just so touching. I helped an American military soldier get his family who had been separated, and some were here, somewhere in somewhere in Abu Dhabi, somewhere in a different country, somewhere in the US. I was able to reunite all of them back together. And his niece and nephew, before they got on the plane, I looked them in the eye and I said, listen, I hope one day that you're able to do the same thing that I just did. And that is to serve as a diplomat and make somebody's life change for the good. Those stories for me mean even more than feeding lemurs or having exotic animals in my house or being able to say I've been to Marine Corps balls and seeing different experiences like that. But at the same time, it's always also about personal journey for me. When I was in Sarajevo, I decided I wanted to try something completely different and not anything that I had ever done before. I don't know why I even thought about it, but I let a friend of mine convince me to run a half marathon. And I was like, I'm going to run a half marathon, one and done. No more than that. Let me tell you, I think I might have been crazy. I think she might have been crazy too, because I ran the half marathon and did a lot of training up to it. I have a wall of medals over here on the wall behind me. And I was like, the only way I'm going to stay motivated is if I make something for it and I earn something. So I started earning virtual race medals. And I said, this is great. I'm having a great time. I'm enjoying this, but 13.1 miles is just way too much. I can handle 3 miles. I can handle 4 miles. I'm done after one half marathon. Ran the half marathon, finished, was happy with my finish time. Said, this is great. I turned around and 2 months later, started training for a second half marathon. craziest thing in the world, ran the second half marathon, made a personal best. And then I was like, okay, now I'm really done. Then I waited another month and I was in the process of training for a third half marathon when my body finally said, got to take a break. But I still enjoy running. I still enjoy the opportunity to earn virtual medals, but I do it now walking or biking or swimming. So I find other activities to keep me motivated to do stuff. For me, being overseas and having the opportunity to experience different cultures and different activities, different things that I would never have done before has been some of the most amazing parts of this career. But it's also been seeing how resilient people are, seeing how strong people are in the face of adversity, in the face of challenges, and just seeing how people will bounce back. And it just brings you to the point of awe, inspiring, and inspiration, and just want you to keep going and keep doing what you can to help them. Whether it be encouraging and continually encouraging a government to work through a transition from a coup, a military coup, into a democratic elected government, or whether it be helping combat HIV, AIDS, malaria, polio, or any other worldwide disease that could be treated with medication. Or even helping American citizens when they are stuck in a country and they are having difficulties and they're having troubles. Just being able to reach out to them and say, listen, there is somebody here that can help you is just amazing for me. And it's, again, one of the reasons why I continue to serve and will be one of the reasons why I serve. I've always said I will do this job until it's no longer fun. And I find it to be fun because I have the opportunity to do different things, travel different places, and see a lot more of the world than I think I ever would have if I had just stayed in New York. So there's a couple quick things that I want to encourage everybody. I wouldn't be a diplomat if I didn't encourage them. Hello, whiskey. One is always travel safe. We have a website, travel.state.gov, which you can get a lot of information on. Not only will it give you up-to-date information about how to get a US passport, you can also find information about US visas, international travel. But we also have a program called the Smart Traveler Enrollment Program, STEP. And it's step.state.gov. And this allows, by enrolling here in this free program, it allows you to receive alerts and ensures that you can be reached in an emergency by any consulate or embassy when you're traveling abroad. We use it here in Conakry to let people know that there are protests, or to let people know when there are situations where we are asking restricted movements, or for example, when COVID hit and people needed to wanted to know about opportunities to evacuate. We were putting that information out through our step.state.gov program. We also send out information about to American citizens who are living abroad about voter registration and federal benefits. All that information gets pushed out to our program enrollees. We also help citizens in an emergency through our travel.state.gov. It gives you a lot of updated information about the country, if there's recommendations for traveling to a certain country. It's very easy. You just go in, sign up, and then every time you travel, you just put that travel information in. And if there's any problems, they will alert you in real time. We have several different ways to reach out and connect with us. Obviously, you can connect on the website, going to state.gov to learn more about the Department of State and what we do. Careers.state.gov talks about our careers, our opportunities. They also talk about the different fellowship programs and the internships and any of the other opportunities that we have. We have a Twitter at State Department and at Engage State. And you can also email public outreach at state.gov. Anybody have any questions?
Kat, I do.
Yes.
If I may, I noticed that you've been largely stationed in parts of the world other than first world parts. But that prompts my question. If you had to give one piece of advice to Americans who are traveling to the types of countries where you've been working for the State Department, what might that be?
Don't expect first world services. I mean, I find that a lot of my reasoning behind going to these countries was because I didn't want to go to the first world per se. I wanted to kind of get a lot more of a perspective from the developing side of things. But at the same time, that means I need to make sure that I set my expectation of I may not get first rate quality healthcare. I may not find every bit of goods that I'm looking for. I'm not going to go into a grocery store and see the same equivalents of groceries that I would see in the US. So it's an expectation. Set the expectation and understand that you're not always going to be expecting or having a first world experience.
Good reminder. Yeah, I think that's very helpful advice. Well, actually, and I was going to ask this, but Megan posted it on the chat, so I'll pose her question. She says, "Do you get a say in where you're posted?" And second question is, "What was your favorite posting?"
So our first two tours are generally directed. We do get a little bit of a say, and when I say a little bit, it's we basically will get a list and we say, okay, here's our ranking of where we want to go. And then it's people in DC are like, okay, well, we're going to put you here because this is a better fit or this works for your timing.